I previously looked at these verses from Hebrews chapter 10, verse 23 to 25, as we spoke about encouraging one another. And I want to read them to you again today. They say, "Let us hold unswervingly to the hope we profess, for he who promised is faithful. And let us consider how we may spur one another on towards love and good deeds, not giving up meeting together as some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching." And I want for us to think today about how we encourage one another through prayer. So there's two things I think we should look to do as God's children. The first thing is that we should share when God answers our prayers. Because when we do so, we're telling of the goodness of God and how it is that He's been working in our lives. And when we do that, when we tell others, it reinforces for us the goodness of God and His work in us, but also encourages others. I think in relation to these verses from Hebrews, to share answers to prayer with our family and those in our church family will encourage them. It will teach them. It's likely to help them hold unswervingly to the faith they profess. And it's likely to spur them on to love and good deeds as they see your received answers to prayer and are reminded that God is powerful and good and is wise in all His ways. We also remember what God taught the Israelites in Deuteronomy chapter 11. Speaking of the commandments, He says, "Fix these words of mine in your hearts and minds, tie them as symbols on your hands and bind them on your foreheads. Teach them to your children, talking about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down and when you get up. Write them on the doorframes of your houses and on your gates, so that your days and the days of your children may be many in the land that the Lord swore to give your ancestors, as many as the days that the heavens are above the earth." Speaking about all that God has done, speaking about the goodness of God, they're to tell their children. They're to write it down. And in the same way, when it comes to prayer, I think this is a really important thing for us to do. The second thing I was thinking of what I want, that I think we should be doing, I want to call praying for other people's people. And here's what I mean. I think that if someone makes a prayer request or if their name is in the church newsletter, I think we're probably pretty good at praying for them. We might not always be good at asking for prayer for ourselves, but possibly we find it easier to ask people to pray for those we know. But I think the majority of these times, the prayers we're asking for are for those who are in some kind of difficulty. Maybe especially medically related things, when someone's unwell or in hospital or facing surgery of some sort. But I wonder how often, or if ever, we ask people to pray for the people we are praying for in relation to evangelism. Let me suggest this. One question I think that has a knock-on effect in many areas of church life. You'll see it on the screen. If today you would ask one other person in church, who are the people that you are praying for who are not Christians that you are praying God will save? Because I'm going to join you in that. I'm also going to pray for them. Now, wow, let me tell you, that is quite a question. Because I believe here are some of the impacts of it. If you have someone that you're praying for and someone comes up and asks you this question, how amazing then is it that someone else is going to pray for them too? Double the prayers. What it also means is it keeps you accountable. So that when they come next time and ask you, hey, how are you getting on with such and such? It keeps you accountable so that in between times, you're praying for them and you're also thinking about opportunities where you might witness to them. I think surely it encourages us. That question would encourage us. It spurs us on to seek these opportunities with people. And on our own, we can easily lose sight and be discouraged. It's again the value of the church. It increases, I believe, the evangelistic temperature of the church, where we become far more aware of wanting to pray for the lost and actually having names of those who are lost and collectively praying for them. And so both our evangelistic culture within the church and the culture of prayer are grown just through one simple question. I think it challenges our own prayers as well. It expands our own prayers when we say, God, I'm going to bring before you this person. You know that this person in church has been praying for this other person, and I want to pray for them. I want to pray for the person in church too, that you'll give them opportunities, you'll give them the words to say. And so this one question, who are you praying for that I can also pray for, is a wonderful question. And I think if God was to answer our prayers and we see people saved, there's going to be great joy. And that joy is going to be spread and shared and multiplied because many of us have been praying for these same people. Let me also say this. If you're asked that question and there's actually no one that you're praying for to be saved, and I think it's a huge challenge because we know that we ought to be. We ought to be trying to reach the lost. So then being asked this question should cause us actively to pray and to seek opportunities for the lost. It's a really good question. So I'm going to finish there, and I'm going to challenge you, even now, to contact someone from church and say, who are your people? Who are you praying for that God will save so that I can also pray for them too?